That's focused on wildlife coexistence efforts happening across Australia. But first, I would like to give an acknowledgement of country. This is a show of respect for the traditional owners and the continuing connection of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to country. We acknowledge the traditional owners of the country. In Sydney, where I am based, this is the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, wildlife, and culture. We pay respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. May we join together to build a future that's based on compassion, justice, hope, and reconciliation. So this forum will run for the next hour, and we have such an exciting lineup to share with you. We're so excited. Firstly, we'll travel to the Northern Rivers region in the state of New South Wales, where Linda Sparrow, who is the president of Bangalow Koalas, will share with you the fantastic work that they are doing to replant forests to create shelter and food for koalas. This is even more important after the devastating fires that were experienced across Australia in 2019 and 2020. Then I'll pass over to Suzanne, the director of IWCN, who'll share her personal story of when she traveled to Australia and she met with a range of farmers to explore with them the range of tools and practices that can be used to protect dingoes, but also protect livestock from dingo predation. It was on that trip that I first met Suzanne, where she gave a presentation of the Wood River Wolf Project. And it transformed my life. It's one of the first times that I had listened to a conservation presentation that gave me hope. And she inspired me to do my PhD, which I'm in my final year of, that's looking at pathways towards coexistence with large carnivores in rangeland areas. And a bit later in the program, I'm going to share some of my findings from my PhD. And now all these years later, we're working together on this network to really shape the movement towards wildlife conservation. And so we're so excited to have you all here today. Australia is one of the most biodiverse areas anywhere on the planet. We have such unique and wonderful species, yet we also have the largest extinction of mammals anywhere on the planet, and a third of the modern extinctions of mammals have occurred in Australia. So much work is to be done here. We also, as part of our program, have something really special to share with you, and it's the Australian indie folk group Bow and Arrow. I personally know one of the singers, and so very excited to share their beautiful music with you all as part of this program. At the end of our program, we'll have a question and answer, so you can save up all your questions till then. But now, firstly, I'll pass on to the director of the International Wildlife Coexistence Network, Suzanne. Over to you.
Helps to unmute. Hi, Lou. I'm so happy that everyone here is joining us. We're so excited about this first webinar going down under and highlighting the wonderful work that's occurring in Australia and the reason for so much wonderful work to happen there. I mean, the biodiversity in Australia is astounding. And I think that there's a lot of places in the world that don't recognize what a special place this is and how unique the species are that are there. So we want to help shed some light on that and some of the wonderful wildlife warriors that are working in Australia to help promote these species. But with that, I'd like to tell you a little bit about just the work of the International Wildlife Coexistence Network, who we are, and why we're here, and why we're helping to promote this work around the world. We usually start with the question of why coexistence? And I think that that's probably one of the questions that has occurred more more in the past that I think people are starting to really understand that coexistence itself is something that is imperative to this day. And we're living in a time when the earth is losing her wildlife and wild places faster than any time in the last 3 million years. That's, you know, talking about living in momentous times. And if we maintain this path, wild species and their unique habitats will be lost forever. Currently, wildlife in conflict with people are often killed or their habitat destroyed in an attempt to prevent the conflicts, or simply because communities don't have the resources to do anything differently. It's the way it's always been done. And it is the primary threat to wildlife on a global scale. So, as we were coming together and talking about some of these issues in Australia many years ago, we also were brainstorming, what does that mean? How do we do anything when it's happening at such an enormous scale? And I think it occurred to us at the time that the number of people living in wildlife habitat around the world obviously is increasing, which is why the conflicts are increasing. And because of that, we're seeing the destruction of wildlife and their habitat at such major levels that it's threatening biodiversity and the resiliency of our ecosystems around the world. But we understand, the work that we've done already on the ground, that with some careful thought and planning, it's possible for both wildlife and humans to coexist. And not only is it possible, it's actually the best solution, because it means that we're working with nature rather than against her. Our greatest challenge, which was connecting together, there's all these wonderful wildlife warriors around the world that are working on these issues, trying to do what they can for the wildlife in their communities. But often we're disconnected, often didn't have the resources that they needed. And because of that, we thought, we can play a role in that. The network can come together and provide that expert interdisciplinary assistance, the training, collaboration, and the shared research that helps enable communities around the globe to coexist with wildlife. And that's our goal. We want to be an inclusive organization. That's why we're reaching out to so many of these other groups around the world. We want to support them. We want to share informational resources and provide a widespread support for those who seek to peacefully resolve conflicts with wildlife. Our team, right now, we have a coexistence team that consists of scientists, agricultural managers, researchers, ethicists, economists, government specialists, high-tech people that are designing amazing things and new technologies and AI technology for wildlife tracking, educators, Indigenous leaders, technical leaders, musicians, and filmmakers, and so many other people. But they're coming together to help pioneer these new ways to live with wildlife and help us connect with those communities around the world. So that's kind of our vision. We want to see a future where communities worldwide live sustainably with their local wildlife, and we want to be a part of making that happen. So with that, I am really pleased to welcome Louise. Has been telling me about Linda for a very long time. She is one of these people that must be completely unstoppable. I am just blown away by the amount of habitat that she's helping to restore. And I absolutely, one of the things that I was most interested in seeing when I was in Australia was, the elusive koala, and because they are just absolutely an icon of the Australian culture. So I am very pleased to introduce Linda Sparrow, who's the president of Bangalow Koala, and welcome her into our fold and our family, and to help support the work that they're doing. Thanks for joining us, Linda.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm really honoured to be a part of this today. I have to apologise about my voice. I'm as sick as a dog. So, so I say that up front right now. But, we've been flat out planting trees, and I'll let Josh just show a video of, so you can get a concept of what we are all about.
G'day, I'm Pat Rafter. I'm here on my property here outside of Byron Bay. We are here with Bangalow Koalas trying to restore some trees for habitat for koalas. We put in a couple of thousand over the last couple of weeks. Got a couple more going in now, a couple of thousand going in. I just want everyone to be aware that we do need this to happen, to hopefully people who own big blocks of land, they can regenerate with Koala Foundation. The Bangalore Koalas have been great enough to help support this initiative, and we're going to go ahead and try and restore it and get some koalas back in the area and give them a good safe haven to live. So I might feel like I'm doing a bit of a spin here, and I am. So I'm here to try to help and support Bangalow Koalas. If you want to get behind the foundation, give these guys a call. Linda Sparrow at Bangalow Koalas. The corridor is going to go from the border of Queensland, New South Wales, through down Tenterfield, Grafton. So it's a big area they want to cover, and they're trying to do as much as they can. So get in there, get behind them.
So that just gives you a bit of a rundown what we're about. So we actually formed in 2016, and it was all, I just had a phone call from a friend of mine that just randomly said, "Oh, Linda, I need your help saving koalas." And I said, "Of course you do." And then it was just about protecting a 400-metre stretch of trees in Bangalow. And that has since evolved, that our corridor has actually gone now from, we're looking at from Byron Bay and surrounds. We're heading out towards Tenterfield. We're heading up to the Queensland border and down to Grafton. And that was purely, we've grown so big, purely, especially after the fires, where I was getting contacted constantly by phone calls, emails, messaging, how can we help, what can we do? So we've been contacted by all these people all over the Northern Rivers. And the Northern Rivers area, it's over 2 million hectares of land. So it's a huge area that we're talking about. We originally were only looking in the Byron Shire, but then we kept getting contacted by landholders, and it just kept growing. So our success has pretty much been based on forming relationships with your local councils, your local members of parliament, land care groups, community groups and stuff like that. And then once you do one planting, or you do one planting, the neighbours want to get involved and stuff like that. So we do, our three things that we aim to do is to educate, inspire, involve the community. And as a result of that, which you can say we're actually doing, that you get more and more people want to come on board. We've got schools that want to bring the kids to come and plant. We're actually part of a Green Innovation Awards mentoring program that they've started this year, where we're going out to primary schools, and I'm going next Thursday to one, and just mentoring them about, you know, projects that they need to do and stuff like that. So we hold educational workshops, for kiddie workshops where I dress up in my koala suit, and I have to tell you I look adorable in it. And that's teaching health and healthy koalas what they look like, sick koalas what they look like, you know, getting the kids to tell their parents to slow down in koala areas, because we also do have signs that we do up and hand out to people. And we also do adult health and habitat workshops. So that's educating people. This is what you can do to save koalas. This is what healthy, sick ones, get involved with rescuing. Because I used to be a rescuer as well, but I couldn't do rescuing koalas and planting trees. And since it's more important to get trees in the ground right now, I've had to hang up my rescue boots. And then we also do landholder workshops. So we'll go all over the place, do workshops, people come along, and our bush regen guy tells people how to do things. We have an ecologist that comes to those workshops. So she's telling them about, you know, conservation agreements and fencing, wildlife friendly fencing and all that sort of stuff. So it's gone from just tree planting to a whole building up the community engagement. That planting that you saw on that video, we had 180 people turn up from Southeast Queensland, Brisbane, and we're talking about 3 hours away, all over the northern rivers. And so 180 people turned up to do 2,600 trees, and it was all over in 45 minutes. So when the fires happened, those horrendous fires, we had a planting February last year before COVID stopped everything. And we had 2 United Airlines cabin crew that actually flew from San Francisco just to do the planting. So they got to Sydney the day before, did the planting and flew back the day after. So it was like, this is insane that you've got all these people all over the place that want to do things. So our job is to make sure that people can be involved. So whether it's coming to a planting and planting trees, whether it's raising funds, whether it's just, you know, if they want trees planted on their property, there's all different ways that you can help. And so it's building the relationships with all levels of government. So I'm dealing with the state government, the federal government, the local councils, as I said, community groups. We mentor as well. So I've been contacted by groups down in Victoria and up in Queensland. So we're mentoring them on, this is how you can do what we're doing. And so we're actually looking at an idea of putting together something of what you have to do from the very beginning to where we are now, where we're planting thousands and thousands of trees. So as of yesterday, we've planted 94,000 trees since 2018. And this year alone, we're planting 75,000 trees. So I doubt I'll be able to speak at the end of this year. It's a huge, huge job. The logistics of ordering the trees and organising the volunteers and the plantings and whatever. And then I just spent my entire life writing grants, because we couldn't have done this without grant money. And we're not waiting for the federal government or the state government to do something about koala protection. We're doing it from the ground up. And we don't have to, there's no red tape or anything, because we're dealing directly with landholders, directly with the community. And the majority of Koala Habitat is on private land. So the more people we get who actually want to plant, the better chance we've got that we can save the koalas. And we've got all these amazing citizen scientists everywhere that, you know, letting me know, oh, I think this koala's sick. And so I put them onto a rescue line and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, a small community group like us, I would have never thought 5 years ago that we would be partnered with World Wildlife Fund to plant 100,000 trees over the next 3 years. And we're working with all these other NGOs, and I4 are helping us, and Wild Ark, and they're all helping fund. But we could literally plant all year if we had the funding to do so. So, and we're trying to, it started out, all that stuff behind me, that's all koala stuff there. My normal job has sort of shrunk and disappeared, and it's just, you know, I'm the koala lady now, they call me. So, you know, anything can be done. My dream is if we could have, you know, 10, 20 groups that are doing what we're doing, imagine what you can actually achieve. So our goal is to do 250,000 trees by the end of 2025, but we will, we're gonna way past that, because as I said, we've done 94,000 trees already. And by the end of next week, it'll be 100,000. So, and this month in May, we've got a ridiculous amount of trees. We've got 33,000 trees we've got to plant, which is what, you know, some people will do in a year, and we're doing it in a month. So, anything can happen if you've got the passion, you've got the dedication, you've got the brains trust, which we've got ecologists and accountants and solicitors and bush regen people. So it's about getting the right people together. It's about actually just working with all levels of people. And most excitingly, we've also partnered with an Indigenous group, the Minyamai Rangers. So we're actually getting them back on country, which is an amazing thing. So we have about 5 rangers that will come to our plantings, and we're also sort of mentoring them on how, because they're not quite used to the mass plantings we do. So our bush regen guys actually teaching them how to plant and maintain and stuff like that. So it's exciting to get the rangers. They're really excited to work with us. So we're trying to work on getting funding that we can actually employ them ongoing, so that we can get, at the moment they only get 2 days a week that's funded through the state government. So we want to get them working more across all the northern rivers. There's other Indigenous groups that I'm yet to speak to because a bit busy, but yeah, that's what we're all about. And because of the state government's issues with koalas, they really do not want to protect them in any state or form. So the important is because the habitat is on private land, and we're trying to also work with farmers as well, because the state government makes out that the farmers, they're going to lose out, but we've actually got farmers that are contacting us. So that's what I mean is like, you work from the ground up, you aim high, and you just work your butt off. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. And while you were speaking, I just thought about a quote from a cultural anthropologist, Margaret Mead, and the quote is, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful citizens can't change the world. It's the only thing that ever has." So thank you very much for your work and dedication to protect koalas. We did in New South Wales lose about a third of our koala population in the recent fires. So Linda and Bangalore Koalas work is really, really important. And Linda mentioned to me on the phone the other day that some of the trees that they had planted 3 years ago were already being used by koalas. So there's been some criticism that planting trees now, it's not going to help koalas for years to come, but in such a short time, koalas are already using that habitat, and there's evidence of that. So thank you so much. So now we'll just shift gears from koalas in the treetops to other species such as dingoes and kangaroos in Australia. So one of my PhD supervisors is Dr. Ariane Wallach, who's also on our Coexistence Council, and that's her on screen with Suzanne and I. She is a lead researcher about dingoes and predator-friendly farming. And I'm forever indebted to both Suzanne and Ariane for building my knowledge and interest in this area. As part of my PhD, I've interviewed about 65 stakeholders. So that includes livestock grazers or ranchers, people from government, people from conservation NGOs, and researchers across South Africa, Australia, and the USA. And it's really heartening to see that many landholders and livestock producers are already adopting non-lethal tools and practices to protect their livestock from carnivores, but also in efforts to protect those carnivores from human persecution. Now in Australia, dingoes are actively persecuted across most of Australia due to conflicts with agriculture, in particularly sheep producers. And I've been working with the Australian chapter of the Humane Society International to create a guidebook that can support and provide information to landholders to transition towards coexistence with dingoes. So part of the information that I gathered from livestock producers internationally and within Australia, we're writing up a series of case studies to explain how to coexist with dingoes a bit better. So we aim to inspire and support landholders. So some of the coexistence tools and practices that are being primarily used here is just not killing dingoes. So actually creating space for dingoes to form their stable family groups. And in doing that, you're not disturbing dingo groups. Dingoes are territorial. So when you disrupt dingo packs, it actually increases the chance of livestock production. And there's many studies that Ariane and others have co-authored to show that that's the case. So by simply leaving dingoes alone to form stable family groups, we can act to reduce dingo predation on livestock industries. Another important aspect is that Australia is one of the driest continents on Earth, and so water is a limiting factor, and some livestock producers are putting in additional livestock watering points, so they're using groundwater to do that so that the cattle don't have to walk as far to access water, because when that happens, often cattle with young calves leave their calves behind because their calves can't travel 10 or 20 kilometers to those watering points. And it's at that point, if the calves are left on their own, that they're vulnerable to predation, and that's when some conflicts occur. So by increasing access to water, we can reduce the vulnerability of young livestock to predation. Other livestock producers are engaging in the whole regenerative agricultural movement. So that includes doing rotational grazing of livestock, and also more high density, short duration grazing, where you use a portion of your land for a short time and then move your livestock on. That allows more regeneration of the vegetation. And that in some instances is shown to increase the productivity and resilience of landscapes. And that creates more habitat for other species, such as kangaroos and rabbits, that are actually a preferred food source of dingoes. Other sheep producers, sheep are quite vulnerable to dingo predation. So there's a lot of livestock producers that are successfully using livestock guardian dogs, such as Maremma dogs, and also guardian donkeys to protect their livestock, in conjunction with greater human presence and also wildlife-friendly fencing and electric fencing. So all of this great information will be written up, as I mentioned, in a guidebook that will be available in the resources section of our IWCN website. So please stay tuned. That will hopefully be in July. The other work that's been happening is there's been quite a lot of momentum towards kangaroo protection. So kangaroos are Australia's largest herbivore, and like dingoes are actively persecuted across Australia in their native land because landholders are concerned with kangaroos damaging fences and also competing with introduced livestock for food and water resources. We have a commercial kangaroo industry here that kangaroos are killed for their meat and their hides and their leather, and it actually is the largest killing of terrestrial mammals anywhere on the planet. It creates a huge welfare and conservation concern, and such concerns have come to the attention of our New South Wales Parliament. So they've just launched an inquiry into the health and well-being of kangaroos and other macropods. So I've been working with various NGOs to provide information for this government inquiry. We're very excited to have an inquiry because we need to look at the management of kangaroos across Australia. If you want to learn more about what is happening with kangaroos, I urge you to have a look at this documentary film called Kangaroo: A Love-Hate Story. It was released in 2019, and it really goes through the different perspectives of kangaroos in Australia. It's important to discuss the costs and benefits of living alongside wildlife, and to find ways that we can create space and coexist peacefully with our wild neighbours. So if you have any questions, please hold them until the end of the forum. And now I will pass on to Tom Provins, who's our treasurer of the International Wildlife Coexistence Network, who has a few messages. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Louise, and thank you everybody for joining. I'll be brief. I know everybody looks forward to hearing from the treasurer. I'm here to discuss with you what makes IWCN different. Linda and Louise just pointed out, it's two different people from two different walks of life in just Australia, cooperating with each other, learning from each other, and finding out how these programs can help each other. The IWCN, this is where we're a little different. For you people on the call that have worked with nonprofits before and in wildlife and in ecology, we have so many groups out there. And what we're trying to do with the IWCN is get everybody to share this information. We're trying to be a central point where Suzanne, that works with wolves in the northwest of the United States, can share information with Louise that might help with dingo issues in Australia. And we're finding that all over the world. And where we're different at the IWCN is even our structure is different. We want everybody to give and everybody to participate. If you're a professional, there's a link on our website. Reach out to us, talk to us, and find a way to link together where we can all help each other and help network with each other. If you're not a professional in biology like myself, help out with these groups. You see Linda's passion, Louise's passion, Suzanne, all the work they need to do. They all have the same thing in common. We need to support these people financially so they can stay in the field and do all the great work that they do. We have a lot of great people that offer different things. And another way we're different at the IWCN is we've all worked in different capacities financially. We want to be basically the most transparent nonprofit you could ever be involved with. There's a group called Charity Navigator, and they track all the nonprofits around the world. And 10% of these nonprofits get rated 4-star, which means basically they do everything with every donation that they promised they would. And we're on track to become one of those companies. So please, if any of these messages mean something to you, if you want to get involved, whether it's financially or professionally, please reach out to us, go through our IWCN website, click on whether link applies to you, and please give and please help out. So thanks again. We appreciate you guys tuning in, and back to you, Louise.
Thanks very much, Tom. So I have something very exciting to share with you, and I would like to introduce Mindy and Mitchell Quanton and Jack Hickey from the musical trio Bow and Arrow. They're performing a song that they've generously pre-recorded for this event, and Josh is going to share that with you.
I could, I would give you life. I'd turn around just to give you time. It's coming round again. Coming round the bend. From up here I can see my mind. You could be wrong, but I saw you fly. Following the wind. Following the wind. If I could, I would give you life.
If I could, I would give you life.
Out the way in the darker night.
If I could, I would give you life.
Yes, I did know I saw you fly.
I would give you life.
Following the wind. I wanna give you life. If we could give you life, you gotta find the life. You gotta give you life. Oh, I wanna give you life. If we could give you life, oh, I wanna give you life. You gotta give you life. Yeah.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that. That song was called The Light, and they specially chose that song because we really need to be the light workers and show how we can connect back to our precious wildlife and conserve our wildlife. So that was very exciting. I actually used to go to school with Amanda, and she used to sing to me all the time, and I knew she was destined for greatness. So now it's time to get a little bit more interactive, people. We want to hear from you if you have any questions for Linda, for Suzanne, or for myself, or any of our other staff members of IWCN. So there was a question that I saw in the chat from Lawrence Schoen, who is a great advocate for wolves in Idaho, who I got to meet a while back. So he has a question for Linda, and the question was, how long does it take before the trees mature to a level that they can be used by koalas?
Hi, Lawrence. Actually, they usually say from 3 years and above that the koalas will start using them, because when they're really young, they're actually toxic for, the leaves are toxic for koalas. But up here in the northern rivers, things grow so fast that actually, not last week, the week before, I was out going to a property where we had planted 18 months ago. And I was there with a bush regen guy, and there were koala scratchings on the trunks of the trees. There were scats, koala poo, at the base of the tree, and the trees were so large, so the koalas are already using the trees at 18 months, which is amazing. And on that same property, on another portion of it, there were trees that we planted 2 years ago, and the same thing, that there was a lot of koala usage of those trees. So that's why when the fires happened, it was like we originally set a target of 25,000 trees last year, and I said, sod that, let's make it 40,000. And we ended up planting 53,500 trees last year. So yeah, the sooner we get the trees in the ground, they could be using them anywhere from 2 to 3 years.
Thanks so much, Linda. And just for our international viewers, it's even more important that we have Koala Habitat, because when koalas get stressed, they're more prone to getting the virus or the bacteria chlamydia, and that's really devastating koala populations. So it's really important to create habitat for koalas so that they can feel safe, that they can be able to disperse, to find mates, to access food. So the work that Linda and Bangalow Koalas is doing is even more important to safeguard our species. So I might just also give a little shout out to Cynthia Hoffman and Alison Miller, who are our fantastic team that are heading up our communications for the IWCN, and also Sharon Boland, who is our wonderful admin whiz. And they're going to be helping to procure the chat. So please continue to ask questions. Okay, so we have, okay, there's a question from Carl who asked, how do you overcome preconceived notions of species that you're attempting to preserve? Oh, Carl, that's such a pertinent question, and it is a difficult thing, especially I would say, perhaps not so much with koalas. I feel like people really love koalas, but certainly with dingoes and kangaroos, there is a lot of ingrained cultural bias against these species. And so changing culture is something that is often difficult to do. But what we're hoping to achieve through our international wildlife coexistence is to provide hope and inspiration and raise our consciousness about the need to coexist with species and to really extend our circle of compassion outside of humans towards non-humans, animals that we share this planet with, because there's really an illusion that we have that we are separate from nature, we are separate from other species, and that's quite an illusion. So whatever we do to harm other species, we ultimately are harming ourselves. And all of these species are so important in biodiversity and in ways that we don't even know or have that knowledge at the moment. So all of those species in an ecosystem play their part to make an ecosystem healthy and functioning. And so when we start taking out large cohorts of these species, we're really unraveling the whole system. And unfortunately, we are seeing the great unraveling at the moment. And so that makes the work and why we need to really collaborate and join together to restore what's been lost and to protect what is still left, because that's really, really important to make sure that we all can continue on this beautiful planet that we've shared our Earth with. So, Linda, did you have anything else to add there, or Suzanne, on how we can overcome prejudice with the species that we're working with?
I get some people sort of say to me, you know, what about all these other species and stuff like that? And when we're doing our plantings, it's not just about the koala, because the koala is the umbrella species. So that gets all the funding. But people aren't going to, you know, want to fund for a black cockatoo, for example, or stuff like that. So we actually plant all sorts of stuff. It's not just koala trees, it can be rainforest trees or other species. And we plant for the glossy black cockatoo, which is endangered. And we're doing stuff on riparian zones for the platypus, which after the bushfires is vulnerable now. And we plant for all different sorts of, you know, gliders, and we're creating an ecosystem, and in that ecosystem, everything can survive. So we're lucky because it's koalas. So if you hate koalas, well, you've got no hope. But, you know, like even we're getting farmers now that we just did a planting last Tuesday, and they're a cattle farmer, but they're this co-op of 800 farmers, and they're doing environmental work. So the planting we did is a showcase that they're using, so showing farmers that you can use your land and make money from it, but you can also be environmental and be saving a species. And so they're really excited about working with us for other people. So yeah, I don't even know if I just answered that question there. I'm going around in circles, sorry.
I think you did really well, and I think that, you know, it was really good to make that point that farmers are so in tune with their landscape and they are our natural resource managers. And I think it's really important to show the case that agriculture and wildlife conservation do sit hand in hand, and it's very important that it's not seen as a adversarial thing. And so getting farmers that are open to these ideas on board to talk to other farmers and to encourage them along to be open to trying new practices, I think is really important. So I think that's a beautiful way forward. Suzanne, you've obviously worked with a lot of landholders in your career. Did you have something to add there?
Oh, you're on mute.
Okay, let's see if I can unmute.
You're good. We can
You
hear
good? Okay, good. Good. We've had so many technical issues, and it's just always fun with this stuff because we're trying to do this, connecting people around the globe. And, you know, it's amazing, like what, 20 years ago, none of this would have happened. We wouldn't have this kind of interconnection between each other and be able to see what's happening, be able to talk to folks in Australia and do some kind of webinar like this. So it's pretty exciting, but it comes with its challenges. I guess, you know, for Linda, this is having a mega species or megafauna that is charismatic, like the koala. It does help a whole lot of other species that people don't know very much about. And I think that's the most important thing, is you find an avenue through coexistence into the communities, and you register with them, meet them kind of where they're at. And if koala is what they are interested in and they're willing to get behind it, then you've got an opportunity then to help teach them about the other species that are out there and how important they are to the ecosystem as well. And, you know, the fascinating facts about, you know, what happens with wombats and the sugar gliders and just these incredible species that are there. So, you know, it's about kind of finding people where they are. And sometimes the attitudes don't change. You know, sometimes like when we're working with wolves, we see that there's pretty strong opinions that aren't going to change over time. So we do then start to try to meet them where they're at as well. You know, is their goal to help protect livestock? Okay, well, that's a goal that we can share, because by protecting livestock and reducing the conflicts there, we reduce the pressure then on wolves, on bears, on mountain lions, and all the other species that share that ecosystem where there are cattle grazing. So it's kind of about meeting people where they are.
We have a few more questions in the chat here. One directed at Linda. Would farmers make money from having koalas on their property and offering koala tours? I did a tour of Kangaroo Island before the fire, and seeing the koalas and touring with local farmers was a highlight.
We are dealing with like some people that are going to, we did a planting Monday, Tuesday this week where we planted over 6,500 trees, and he's actually going to put on some cabins, and he's planting also for people to come. He's got dams that he's built and everything, so for bird watchers and stuff like that. So he is going to look at some ecotourism as well. And we work with another koala group down in Victoria called Koala Clancy Foundation, and they do a lot of tourist stuff where they actually take people out into the wild and educate them about koalas and other habitat, other wildlife, and then they also can join in on plantings. So yeah, you can do both. You can, you know, farm, but you can also do tourism and make some money that way, because there's ecotourism is a big thing over here. And as long as it's done well, that the koalas aren't getting, overrun by people and tourists and stuff like that, then we don't have a problem with that. But in our whole thing, our corridor is linking properties, and so you've got this bit of a natural link of properties and habitats, and yeah, it's a good thing. And if if it makes farmers want to plant more trees, then we're all for it, because we're about to do another property that's out west, and it was funding through World Wildlife Fund, and they went to go and get to a local farm store for a fencing quote, and the person said, "What's this about?" And they explained. So then he went home and told his parents, who were neighbours, and they're going to plant trees as well. So, you know, they can have both. These farmers, some of them, you know, they call them koala bears, but, you know, we'll forgive them. They're not bears. But yeah, you can whatever works to make people plant trees and have a stewardship of the land and koalas is fine by us.
So get a show of hands here of how many people that want to come out and help you plant trees. I think there would be everybody.
I'm going to be heading up there next week to plant some trees, so very excited to share that with everybody.
Oh, we should have you do like a Facebook Live from there, you know, have posts and stuff. So we'd love to see that.
Yeah, and I think what Linda touched on, a really important point, is that we need to cultivate a culture of stewardship. You know, none of us really own the land. We're borrowing it from our grandchildren, and it's really our responsibility to take the best care of it to the best of our knowledge while we're here on the planet. So I think that's really beautiful.
So Linda, could you just, for me, just talk a little bit about how coexistence, why it's important to the work that you're doing, why working with communities is so important, and just kind of underscore that, I think, for people. I think that they know a lot about coexistence as it's portrayed with wild predators and stuff, but I think it's less so known about other species. And you know, how is working with the community and building that trust, why is that important with the work that you're doing?
Well, without building the relationships with the community and with, you know, the councils and all different levels of, and community groups and all that sort of stuff, we wouldn't be able to achieve what we've done. Because when we started, we literally didn't have hardly any funding, and so you'd have community groups that would come and set up food, and they do that, you know, like provide the food, and then you'd have other people that, you know, a local bank, they lent us marquees, and so we had marquees, and then you had the food, then you had and then you've got the schools that get involved, so then you're educating. Education is the best thing. If you can teach people from the kids right the way up to the grandparents about that each and every tree is important, and to take it's the stewardship, these koalas are ours and we're going to protect it and we're going to do everything we can, then they're, you know, you're actually changing an entire you know, attitude. And I've changed attitudes of people that were farmers that were like, you know, they would have shot them, you know, 30 years ago or something like that, and now they wanted to protect them, and it's just like working with them, working with people around them, and then, you know, you get one neighbour that speaks to another neighbour and stuff like that. So if we can all work together, live together and protect them together, we're a force to be reckoned with. And one of my landholders who works really closely with me now, he said, when he approached me, and he's down in Byron Bay, and I went out there with our ecologist, and he's got a macadamia farm, and he's also got existing koala trees, and we were walking over his property, and I'm saying, oh, we can plant thousands of trees here, and he goes, oh, whoa, steady, I only want to do a few. And now now he keeps coming back, and we just keep planting. And he actually said to the CEO of World Wildlife Fund here in Australia, he said, Linda's got a habit of making you do something you don't want to do, but you end up doing it. So,
yeah, I've heard that a few times too. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
it's so important, the education, the relationships, you know, like I've got really good relationships with our local council, and I get these signs put up all over the council area. And they're the receptionist of the council. If someone rings up and says, I'm worried about a koala, you know, I think they might get hit, she actually gets them to ring me to get the sign up, which they're not supposed to do, but they do. And, you know, so I've got this relationship from the mayor right down to people in the depot that will do things for us because we've just got that good relationship with them. So it's like sometimes you've got to work with, you know, people you don't really want to work with, like Forestry New South Wales, but they donated just under 40,000 trees to us because I was dealing with them about a property that was having a plantation cleared. So yeah, it's so crucial having those relationships and working together.
Thank you. Cindy, Allison, do you guys have some more questions?
Yeah, we have some more questions. This one would be probably for Louise and Linda. Does the Australian government fund programs of non-lethal deterrence? How influential are ranchers in predator control?
Oh, that's a big question. Yes. There is, let's say if we were to put it in a percentage, I would say 95% of the funding is to lethally control dingoes here. It's really unfortunate. We have a wide-scale poison baiting program that is actively supported by government, and unfortunately my taxpayer money goes towards something so hideous as wide-scale poisoning of our native species. When I talk to people overseas and present at conferences, people are like, you guys poison your wildlife. People are so shocked and horrified, but it's actively supported. And to try to get a foot in the door to show that there is another way forward that's more positive, that can create the space to protect livestock and also dingoes it's a very hard sell here, but there's a lot of really dedicated researchers. Arian's one of them, Dr. Bradley Smith and other people that I've been collaborating with that are really showing the way and creating that knowledge. And hopefully by talking to different landholders, there are a lot of landholders that want to do this, but people are having to do this on their own, and that's a really hard barrier to overcome, to try different things, which takes time and money, to put money into things that might not ultimately reduce predation on your livestock. It's really up to individual landholders, and there needs to be much greater support from government. There's a lot of support from the NGO community, but there needs to be a lot more support from government to really balance that, the need to protect agriculture and the need to conserve our wild species. Unfortunately, that balance is not is skewed in favor of something that's really old and not really serving anybody at the moment. So we have a long way to go there. So, but hopefully we can shine that light and show the way. So I hope that answered your question.
We have another question for Linda and Louise. How many acres of forest were destroyed during the wildfires, and has there been any new growth in those areas yet?
So I had to look it up, and it was 12.6 million hectares. It is absolutely staggering. We've never ever had something. I think it was actually the largest wildfire that ever occurred across the whole world, and it's been completely devastating. The promising thing is that, you know, we had a long drought before the fire and higher than normal temperatures, and that created the conditions for the perfect firestorm, which we did see. But right after that, unbelievably, we had quite a lot of rain, and we moved into a cycle where we had a lot of rain. So fortunately, that has, you know, ash in the soil is actually quite conducive to plant growth. So we've actually seen quite a lot of areas rebounding quite quickly. But maybe Linda can add to that. So yeah, there has been growth, but we need a lot of people banding together to plant trees.
There's some of the areas that got really, really, really burnt where it was so hot. Those areas are taking a long, long time to come back. Because when the fires were happening, I was getting calls that people were donating pouches and all sorts of stuff, veterinary supplies. So I did a Mercy dash out to Tenterfield, which is about 2.5 hours out and going through these areas of bushfire. And I was out there only at Easter. And it's amazing how the land has come back to life, and to see all this watering and the trees are coming back. But yeah, there are some areas where it's going to take a long, long, long time because the fire was just too hot, and they may never come back. But a lot of it is so, and a lot of, because we had planted in that drought period, and 2 properties at August and September, and that the fires were going then, and this is just locally here. And we actually set up hoses, and I put out a thing to volunteers for people to come and water both these properties. And from October through to February, every week, these 2 properties, I had volunteers coming out to water these thousands of trees, and they all survived, which was amazing. And that's what we talk about working with people, like that people would go out in the middle of a hot, dry, drought and water, for 2 or 3 hours, a day or something. It was amazing. So yeah. But and now I've actually got the opposite problem. We've got too much rain here at the moment. So we actually lost February and March to planting because we've had so much rain that 2 of my sites that I was going to plant were completely underwater. So that's why we have to do 33,000 trees in May, because we're behind the 8 ball there, but we will get all the trees in. But yeah, it's gone from a drought to a bushfire to floods, and we're just waiting for a locust plague, and then we've had it all.
Actually, I did laugh about that with Suzanne and Cindy. Were saying we're having, a pandemic and then fire and floods, and like what's going to happen next. So yeah, Australia is definitely the land of extremes, and we are seeing more extreme weather events because of global climate change. So there is much work even outside of just protecting wildlife and habitat. Planting trees is really one of the best ways to, soak up that excess carbon that's in the atmosphere and, get a handle on this runaway climate. So we really need to be, I was just wanting to make the point that planting trees not only helps with the soil, it also helps with water infiltration, also keeping, regulation on the climate, disease control. It creates habitat for wildlife and insects and all of those important components of the species, but is also integral to our survival on the planet and keeping us within a safe operating space and getting a handle on climate change. So when you start to look into these issues, you realize that you really need to take a holistic and long-term view in order to actively work together to create solutions for some of the really pressing issues that we're facing and challenges that we're facing. So.
Awesome. So we have another question for all of the panelists. Anyone can answer it. So it's from Carl, and he asks, do you feel that education is crucial to an understanding of specific wildlife species?
Absolutely. Without educating people and without people, and that's why we're starting from the, preschools and going all the way up, without actually people understanding what the problems are and what they can actually do to help, there's no hope for saving any of these species. And as I say, if we can't save the koala, we can't save anything, because if we can save the koala, it's under that umbrella species thing is because you've got that other level of all those other species that from the, you know, insects and frogs and everything that needs habitat. So that's why it's so important that, you know, if we can save the koala, we can save a hell of a lot of other species as well. And if we can educate people about all the problems and all the issues and what they can do, then we're making a good step forward of protecting them into the future.
Yeah, I really, I agree with Linda on that point. I mean, what people don't know about, they don't protect, and what people don't know about, they fear. And so it's really important to help people learn about different species and become fascinated and have that, cultivate that real, I guess, feeling of awe. And I think, you know, David Attenborough's documentary series really, you know, helped to connect people back to nature and see those wild species in their native habitat and want to become interested and want to protect those species. So I think education is really important, and a really great way to do that is through documentaries, but also, yeah, like what Linda was mentioning, getting out there and talking to school children, talking to landholders, and just, you know, having those conversations, because through those conversations we can really transform the world. So I might pass on to Suzanne as well to comment on that.
You're on mute.
You're on mute. Just not be on mute anymore.
I'm not on mute. Okay, there we go. I keep turning it off, turning it on. Oh goodness. I heard we had a wolf question, so I guess we're gonna move from down under to Idaho, I'm guessing. So Allison or Cindy, what did you have?
Yeah, so we have answered all the Australian questions. So
Congratulations.
thank you so much. And for those of you in Australia, you may not know there's been a lot of action on wolves here recently. So we do have a question from Lori asking what's next for Idaho wolves.
Oh boy, yeah, so we've had a really rough few weeks now on wolves in Idaho. We always do. It's one of the worst places. It's one of the best places biologically and geographically, you know, to be as far as like ecosystems go. We have the largest wooded kind of wilderness and national public lands, but wilderness especially in the lower 48 states. So it's an amazing place for wolves. Unfortunately, it's also a tough place politically. And this last few weeks, our state legislature has decided to take over wildlife management away from the state fish and game department and instead legislate how wolves are going to be managed. And they decided, working with just the ranching community, that they wanted to eliminate 90% of the wolves in the state. So somewhere around 1,000 wolves, give or take a few hundred either way. And they want to get rid of 90% of them. We don't, you know, if you look at Idaho and just look at other species that are out there, we have about 3,000 mountain lions, we have 20,000 black bears, we have 50,000 coyotes, we have 100,000 elk, you know, or actually more than that now. There's more elk on the ground now than when we restored wolves back in the 1990s. But there is just this ongoing fear and kind of hatred and very much like an echo chamber of people that are only talking to each other, that have spread information about wolves so much that they really believe it's true, and because they're hearing each other say it over and over again. But wolves, you know, rarely attack livestock. It's still lower than 1% of cattle that is lost to wolves, lower than 3% of sheep. We have the Wood River Project in Idaho, which is going into its 14th year, just started this last week, of showing these non-lethal methods of protecting sheep in wolf range, which is very much like the range right behind me here. It's very rugged terrain, and we lose on average out of about 20,000 sheep a year that are on the range. We lose about 5 of those 20,000. So it's you know, it's really possible to coexist with wolves, but we have a legislature that hasn't tried, and some ranchers in the state that certainly aren't willing to try. And so that bill, Senate Bill 1211, passed the House just a few days ago. It is now heading to the governor's desk. There are people from around the world that are calling the state of Idaho and asking the governor's office to please have him veto this bill, that it is putting Idaho back to the Old West type of eradication of wolves, because that's really what this is an eradication campaign. And so it's all the wildlife groups working together right now to throw everything we can at this to stop that from happening. But we'll see how that unfolds over the next week, and be able to answer that question more fully, whether it's going to take then litigation, legislation, or a combination of those and other efforts to help protect the wolves that are here.
Thank you for that, Suzanne. I want to read off one comment that's not a question, but a kudos to you. So the presentations and the music are terrific. I'm so glad Suzanne's work on the Wood River Wolf project has gone international. It's so important to share ideas on how to coexist with wildlife and to keep them and us thriving, because they are in our lives.
Yeah, and it takes so many of us to do this. There's a few people that get to kind of be out front on this stuff, but it is an army of people behind us that are making it work, a huge team. And, we're lucky to be working with some of the best people that we could possibly know, to come together and build a force to be the voice for these animals.
Yeah, and I think Linda and Suzanne have shown that you just need to get out there and make these things happen. If we wait for the government or for someone else to step in, these things won't happen. So it's up to all of us to do our part. We all live on this planet, and we all have a role and responsibility to protect everything on this planet. We live in such a beautiful place, and there's so many forces at work that mean that things aren't going in the right direction, and we need to really redress that balance and make it happen. So get out there, people, get inspired.
Yeah, and we have places on our website where you can go and you can volunteer if you'd like to. We're looking for experts in different various fields, everything from economics to technology and photography. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can get engaged and involved. We really appreciate everybody joining and becoming a member. Show us that that we've got your support out there, so we can help continue to really help other people around the world. We're looking at doing these webinars in other places like Nepal and Africa and Germany and all kinds of Israel. There's so many different places we want to go to be able to show everyone how exciting this work is on the ground, and how many people are out there doing this work that need your support, and need all of us to understand that all of us have a role to play.
Josh, do we have the link to the video? Okay, so
Yes, we do.
We have a wonderful introductory video of the International Wildlife Coexistence Network that our own Josh Adler created. So if folks want to stick around to see that, Josh will play that. And we want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. This was so wonderful and so special to be able to be with Louise and Linda on totally different days. It's April 30th here in the United States. It's May 1st down in Australia. So lots of confusion on all of our parts on different times and such. But we made it happen. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And Linda, special thank you to you and for all of your work. It's amazing.
Thank you very much. And just remember that from small things, big things grow, and so do koalas and the tree.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody.
And just do it.
Anyone who wants to stick around, Josh is going to start the introduction video, which I highly recommend. It's fabulous.
Wonderful.
Nature is a delicately balanced system that has evolved over millennia. It is what makes our Earth so precious and so unique. But that balance is threatened by the impacts of people on wildlife and wildlife habitat around the world. Too often, people destroy wildlife when there are conflicts, leading to declining wildlife populations and the destruction of the ecosystem upon which we all depend. If we maintain this path, iconic species and their unique habitats will disappear forever. But it doesn't have to be this way. In many areas, local communities have emerged to protect native wildlife and encourage peaceful solutions. Some of these, like the Lion Guardians and Wood River Wolf Project, have been widely successful in demonstrating that non-lethal proactive strategies can effectively transform conflicts into sustainable coexistence solutions. In Africa, the Maasai Nation has become guardians of lions they once hunted. Protecting their livestock, the habitat, and providing economic advantages to the whole community. In Australia, communities are racing to save the koala from deforestation and restore their habitat to ensure the survival of this iconic and beloved species. In the western United States, the same ranchers whose ancestors used to trap and poison wolves leading to their eradication are now protecting their livestock in ways that protect wolves too. The number of projects helping to protect wild animals and their habitat is growing. But many of these projects still fail due to lack of resources, expertise, and community support. That's where the International Wildlife Coexistence Network comes in. With a network of interdisciplinary experts across the globe, we are working alongside communities to help them gain the tools and resources needed for people to coexist with wildlife. By working with nature instead of against her, we can heal our planet, adopt sustainable ways to coexist with wildlife, and benefit local communities. The time to act is now. Join us today. Start by making your own wildlife coexistence pledge, and together we can answer the call to protect all life on planet Earth.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to pass over to Suzanne now, who will just make some closing comments. Thank you, Suzanne.
Oh, you bet. Thanks, everybody. And Linda, thank you so much for joining us tonight and telling us about your amazing work. Louise, we're always so proud of you. We just love the work that you're doing. I saw Ariane was on the chat, so I was really excited to see some of the people that joined us. I wish we could just drag her onto this right now, but it does take people who have an absolute love and compassion, and are willing to set aside their everyday comfort to be able to help pursue this stuff. It means missing sometimes important events. Sometimes family doesn't understand. I mean, it is just you pour your heart and soul into this stuff, and it does take people like that in order to help bring that awareness forward. So please, again, think about what role are you playing? Tell us about what you're doing out there in the world, and we'd love to promote that as well and tell people. Help share this word, so that, because as we grow in number, that gives us all more confidence that we're able to get through. And truly what we're seeking is a shift in paradigm of changing that basic relationship that we have with nature, from one of control, from one of restriction, from one of abuse in the past, and to one of coexistence and respect. So thanks again for joining us, and look forward to the next one.